So on today's episode, I really want to talk about one of the most important things to learn in order to finally live the life that you actually want. And that is how to let go. Whether that's letting go of a person, of a way of thinking, of your own patterns, of hard feelings, pain, and trauma, letting go is something that I think a lot of us think we know how to do, which is great, but I think there is a more deep and effective way to really let go in order to let better things in. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Arielle, and this is Feeling My Feelings, where I finally feel my feelings after years of dissociating from them, and after years of trying to control them, and after years of not being able to express them clearly at all. And so today, y'all, I'm talking all about letting go. About what that actually means, why it's so hard, and how to finally do it. Okay, so let's get into it. Y'all, this has been a thing that has been like the greatest hump in my life at the moment. Because as much as I can intellectualize and understand all of my traumas, what's making me feel the way I do, as much as I can self-soothe and go through the motions of healing myself, it's like I still allow myself to be re-triggered. I still have the pain. I still end up falling back into limiting beliefs. So what's missing is I haven't let go enough of those unhealthy patterns and thoughts and feelings and people, and I haven't been able to bring in what I actually want in my life. Hey, here's the thing. We fall into a lot of patterns and hold on to them because we had to use them to survive. And I've been saying this over and over again in different episodes on this podcast, but I've been realizing lately that I've felt too stubborn to really get over these patterns and to really get over this pain and hurt. I noticed that I wanted to be happier. I want to be more confident. But every time I step into that energy, and I know what it feels like, every time I feel it, I feel like my body feels better. There's almost some weird sense of betrayal that I feel to my pain. And it's odd because that's the exact issue in letting go. You feel like you have a weird attachment to your wounded self. And I think I'm gonna take it a step further. And I feel like I'm almost betraying my wounded inner child. Because that person, for many years, if my trauma originated, as many people's traumas do, when I was a child, that child was the first one that was hurt. And throughout her life, she never got justice for it. She was only told to change, to censor herself, to quiet her voice. She was told to shut up about her actual feelings. She learned how to mask herself. And you know what? I realized that I have a lot of trouble giving up control and giving up patterns where I fall to the control of other people. And that's because I grew up realizing that the only way to survive was to control my body, was to mask myself, and to control my feelings. And the more and more I did that, the more and more my external world, I attracted people who continued to control me. It's interesting because I think a lot of our traumas, a lot of things that have happened to us, we take on, in order to survive. And then we end up manifesting that in our external world. It's weird because my biggest thing that I hate is that I always feel controlled. But in return, I always control myself. Which is why, still really subconsciously, I did not understand how on the nose Feeling My Feelings was as a name for my channel and my podcast. Like literally, without being really mentally aware of it, I knew on some level that that was the big issue. But what I didn't know was how much I myself was controlling my feelings. And if I could let go of my own over controlling nature of myself, maybe I could bring in something new. So I don't know if that resonates for everyone. It might on some level, maybe not the exact way, but for me, I've realized that I have created in my body a lot of tension, a lot of self-protection. And as I've been starting to let go, I can see that my body eases itself. And so I'm starting to give my body permission to be open and to not need to protect itself so much anymore. But yeah, that is a huge reason why we don't always know how to let go of even external things, and in addition to all of our own personal patterns and our thoughts. We're probably on some level trying to protect ourselves too much, honestly trying to control it. And then what happens when you over control things? Well, I am at least not in a state where I'm trying to control other people too much. However, I could be. So if I was so used to controlling my emotions, I could eventually want to really control other people's emotions so that they could fit my level of security. And we all know people who do that. And then eventually that turns into manipulation. Eventually that turns into trickery. And then eventually someone could become a narcissist and become extremely toxic because they need to control everything around them, just like they have to control themselves inside. They have to refrain from vulnerability. They have to mask anything that seems quote unquote weak, which is probably feelings. And they must convince themselves that all of their actual feelings, their wounded child, everything screaming at them is not real. And the way they can control their life is to control everything around them. I've grown up with many of those people. And I at least did not become fully that way, but damn if I am not sometimes like skirting a line between becoming like that. Like I can feel myself sometimes when I get severely triggered, I can turn. I know that I can become nasty. And I feel that I have the urge to overly control a situation. But I try not to fully go there. Okay. It's crazy because I think most of us now, especially with all the social media on mental health and all the new messaging around it in entertainment and wherever, I think a lot of us are aware of our traumas. A lot of us are aware that we do need to feel our feelings more and that we should be sensitive and accepting of other people. But as much as we know that mentally, it doesn't always translate into how our body moves, how our body reacts rather, and how we feel. And I found that as much as I've been doing all of this self-work, a lot of it really important, but it's mental. It is all stuff I am understanding, thank God. And some stuff I am translating to how, I can change my body. However, there's a lot of re-triggering that I still experience. There's a lot of patterns and limiting beliefs that I still fall back into, which is completely normal because I'm not going to heal and get over my complex traumas overnight. But how many times am I going to cry about the same thing? How many times am I going to reference something that happened in my family and have that be the reason why I couldn't do this thing, or I wasn't confident enough, or I couldn't find healthier female friends, or whatever? How many times is that really going to interrupt my life? How the fuck long does healing take? And unfortunately, the answer to that is, it's up to you. It's up to how much time you want to put into it, how much time you want to put into retraining yourself. Well, firstly, I will say it can be hard to just let new things in when you feel like your body's screaming at you that it wants to experience other feelings. Like, I realize that as much as I want to be confident, whenever I feel that way, there's like this weird undertone of sadness that I still haven't felt enough. Again, I've controlled my feelings a lot growing up. And even now that I'm healing them, I think I'm just intellectualizing my healing a lot more than I'm actually physically and emotionally experiencing it. And I realized the other day that I wanted to be sad about something. And so I sat with it and I cried. And I realized that as sad as it is to sit in your sadness, my body felt more whole. I felt more real and more present. And in doing that, I felt more validated. I felt like my feelings were real. And I think if you fall into patterns like I do, where you mask yourself, where you feel like you had to censor your feelings, you question whether or not your feelings are valid at all, obviously, but also you question sometimes reality. Again, I say I've dissociated for years because that was the only way you could protect yourself from your feelings, right? So now that I'm not controlling them as much, I let go of dissociation, I'm more present, and I felt like more of a human. Isn't it funny how when you finally get mad, when you're finally triggered, like you don't want to keep getting triggered, but it's like you're waking yourself up. It's like your body's telling you, wake up, you're mad. Wake up, you're sad. And now, again, you don't have to do that all the time, but for me, that ends up really extreme when I finally feel feelings, because all of like the armor, all of like the like trying to retain the water from spilling out, like it all comes out at once because I've tried to push it down so much. And for me, I've had this unhealthy pattern of either being completely masked and stuffed down or just bursting. And I never fully learned how to express myself and feel my feelings. So when we're talking about letting go, it's in my channel name, whether I was conscious or not about it, but you have to feel. And another way to say let go is express. Your body needs to express itself. Your body needs to be more in flow than it does in tension. Actually, like, tension is only to protect yourself. You only use it in those situations. Everywhere else, it should be more in flow. But the more and more you hold yourself back, the more and more this tension is constant. And I have been living like that for most of my life. And I even got to this point where I didn't know how to move in flow. Even if someone just said, just let go, I literally would be like, I actually don't remember how to anymore. And so I think we have to reassociate our bodies with the feeling of what it feels like to release tension, what it feels like to be present with sadness and with anger, even with harder feelings like, you know, that we're embarrassed about, like jealousy, like insecurity. Like every single feeling is just a signal. It's just something that goes through your body. It's not something that you need to define yourself as. And I know that can be hard, especially if you're like me and you're kind of labeled as bad or crazy or whatever for having feelings. Guess what? The fact that I had to stuff that down so much created this crazy behavior of erratic bursting and emotional outbursts. Like, it's causing the problem, not being able to let go and express. So anyway, a big part of letting go is just allowing. Don't overprotect. Stop holding yourself back. That's hard to do at first, but do it in spaces that are safe, by yourself, with a good trusted therapist. Allow yourself the time to learn how to express yourself and to let go. it is just really frustrating because you probably had a lot of messages repeated to you that made you feel like you had to overprotect and control yourself. For me, it's really annoying because every time I have real deep feelings, every time I feel sad or angry, I have this knee-jerk reaction to censor it because someone's gonna think I'm a burden. I don't think I've ever really had any sort of relationship with a person who really allowed me to be sad or angry in my life, up until maybe the past couple of years. And even if they were open to that, it was not something that I could recognize. So I'm saying all this because it's really important to understand how deep and maybe subconscious a lot of our blocks and resistances are, so that we know why we don't know how to let go or allow new things in. For me, I basically have this default, foundational, deep belief that everyone's just going to be egotistical and they won't actually give a shit about you. And if you cry, you're going to be an inconvenience. If you stand up for yourself, everyone's just going to be annoyed. If you say what you actually want, people are just going to hate you, and they're going to get annoyed at you, and they're going to call you weak, and they're going to call you a victim. And so I learned to mask everything. And taking off that mask is not as easy as a lot of social media and motivational people will tell you it is. If you have really deep traumas and someone's like, just be confident, it's just like, okay, let me tell you why that does not even feel safe for me. I don't think I even know what a healthy, confident version of me looks like, because the last confident versions of me were very defensive. So that's not true confidence or anything. And we're very competitive. I feel like the reason why it's so hard to let go of these old patterns is because you're not only just letting go of one thing, you're having to rebuild a whole sort of identity that you've never had before. It's unfamiliar. It's new. And most of all, you're not accustomed to feeling safe in that. You don't know what that looks like yet. And so that's what I realized with myself. At least my old patterns, I knew how to survive within them. Even if I wasn't entirely happy, I knew how to survive. And so we keep attracting people, we keep seeking out situations, we keep falling back into friendships, relationships, family members, anything in life that is familiar, because at least we know how we can be accepted and how we can survive. And isn't it so much effort to become this whole new person? Yeah, it is. And the sadder part is, I feel like I almost feel too sad to become happier, because doesn't my wounded self, doesn't my trauma-informed self finally deserve her flowers? I did all this shit. I masked myself. I've stuffed down my feelings. So that person better receive love, because what the fuck did I do that for? Only to change so that some other version of me is the one that gets loved. It's kind of like, when it's that thing where say you're with a toxic ex and he doesn't change for you, but he finally changes for a new girl. It's kind of like that, but with yourself, how dare you only love the confident version of yourself? How dare you only accept and feel worthy when you're not in pain? And it's the same sort of odd mirroring problem that I have had with other people. It's that whatever's going on, my hurt, my wounded child self is still not getting nurtured. It's still not getting love. And maybe we don't even want to experience happiness or healthier things yet, because that wounded self was finding some sort of love in that toxic relationship, in those weird people-pleasing patterns that we have with our parents. You know, our masked self is really looking for acceptance. Why aren't they enough yet? I know that this is very deep because I mean, I don't know what I'm going to title this video yet. It might just be like how to let go. And you're like, whoa, that's a lot. But this is really going into, you know, complex patterns. And that's why it's harder for us to let go. Something really interesting that I've recently been learning lately is that it is hard to choose light and love over fear and self-protection. Like, I understand that I say that in all sorts of different ways in my other episodes, but it's really been hitting me that the most basic thing that sounds really lame that you see in TV and in movies and everything, all you need is love. All you need is love, or love is the answer. But really, what we mean is, even if it's not like romantic love, even if it's not like everyone being so like sugar sweet kind to each other, like, it's not just that, it's acceptance. It's not needing to defend yourself, like not needing so much resistance, and allowing things and people to be let in and accepted, like, and not fighting all the time, not I don't know, like causing conflict all the time. That is sometimes the answer. Instead of, okay, every situation I'm in, whenever I'm meeting a new person, whenever I'm at a workplace, whenever I'm on a date, I have to protect myself, or else someone will be mean. And that's how we live our entire lives. I must protect myself so that no one hurts me is how we mostly live our lives. And maybe 20% of our lives is, and then I'll be open, and then I'll receive love, and then I'll like other people. But it's gotten to the point where we all think that life is about self-protection. You gotta do that. It's very important, but how are you going to really let loose, let go, let yourself express and live your life if 80% of your life is just protecting yourself? And it frustrates me all the time because growing up, I was always surrounded by people who I felt chose fear over loving me. And I know that that's a really harsh statement, but oftentimes that's true. If you are dealing with a lot of trauma, you're dealing with the after effects of people who chose to be afraid instead of choosing to be brave enough to be open to you in some way. And that hurts, and that gets perpetuated. And you keep creating generations of people who are just wearing a bunch of armor to protect other people so that they can wear more armor, so y'all can keep being in the army, but then there's no castle or village or people to protect anymore because y'all are all fighting. That is what humanity turns into. And it really ends up pissing me off a lot once I step back and realize that, like, what are we doing, y'all? What are you living for? Let go. Like, I did a breathwork ceremony thing with Aaron Dowdy. Again, I reference him all the time. He's great. Watch his YouTube channel. He does a lot for like empaths, for trauma healing, stuff like that. And he kept referencing, like, during the breathwork, allow yourself to let go of your armor. This is your time. You have the ability to take that off, to stop shielding yourself and be vulnerable for a moment. You get to have that. I don't think we know that we even get to do that for 5 seconds of our lives, depending on whatever you do in your life. It feels like a waste of time. And to many people, it feels like such a burden. I grew up Asian. My parents were like, why the fuck are you crying? You want, like, like, I know that no one wants sad, angry, any other feeling except for happy and positive and confident. But you're a human and you need more. You need to experience everything. You have to be a whole person, and actually being present with your feelings will get you there. So I think a lot of this sort of armored feeling is protecting ourselves from our vulnerable feelings. What do we actually want? Love is the answer. It really is. In all, that's again a blanket term to be honest, but acceptance, to be loved unconditionally, to be liked without having to try too hard, to be able to say that I really care about a person without having to act too cool, or to hold back because they might hurt us, or to refrain from being embarrassed or feeling stupid. All we want is to be able to express that without shame, but we can't. All we want is to go make art without shame of whether or not people are gonna like it. All we want is to be vulnerable. And we know that, but you can't keep up with people unless you also self-protect. When do you get to be your vulnerable self? I'm asking for myself as well. But it feels like we have to be strong enough to also choose love over fear and just living that way. Because otherwise, you miss out on accepting yourself, connections with other people. You miss out on engaging in things you're passionate about. You miss out on life because you just protected yourself. I know that. I know I have mostly isolated myself for a lot of the time because I never felt safe around people. But because I never felt safe enough to be vulnerable, I could not fully be present and live. So let's start to choose love, self-love, unconditional love, over just living in fear. Now comes the actual external hard part of letting go, which, I mean, you could always do, just rip the band-aid off, but if you can, and that's drastically just make the change. If it's you need to build more boundaries or honestly cut off toxic family members, then you got to do it. If it's you finally have to break up with your toxic boyfriend, then you got to do it. If you have to, whatever it is, leave that environment, then you just have to pull the band-aid off. And maybe even if you don't understand, if you don't intellectualize where you're coming from or anything first, maybe you can take the first step and just leave first and understand later. Whatever it is, especially if you're in a really tough situation, if it's detering you from your growth and keeping you from better health, if it's re-triggering you all over and over again, even if you don't want to, maybe you do have to force yourself to step away. I have a friend right now who has been in a relationship with her boyfriend on and off for 2 years, and he has been really physically abusive. And she has grown this attachment to him. And as much as she now mentally knows it's not good for her, I think this happens a lot. A lot of the times we mentally know when something's not good for us. We still keep going back to it because it's familiar, because they at least showed some compassion and love for our wounded side. We don't know how to let go of these things because at least this thing is in front of us right now. It's hard to actually cut things off and to let things go because there's some sort of guarantee with a thing that's right in front of me. But I think you'll find over and over again, you're going to fall into patterns that you don't want to anymore. And you'll keep saying to yourself, one day I will be better. One day it'll be better with us. This is what my friend would tell me all the time. It's gotten better. He's definitely better this time around, which is good. But do you want to keep waiting for someone else to be better, or for a situation to be better, for your family to one day finally accept you as you are? I think it's okay to really grieve that. Especially for me, there was a time where it was really hard for me to let go of the idea that my family could show up in a certain way that I wanted them to. And now what's interesting is I've started to let that go, and they have started to show up in a way that I think is enough, that I know is to their capacity. And I started to grow a lot more compassion for them. And I realized that as much as I wanted more emotional depth from them, I would have to be the one to create that for myself and to other people and for other people in the future. It is, I understand, really lonely to let go of these guaranteed but still toxic and unhealthy connections and patterns and ways of living. And I have fallen into that a couple of times where I would make friends or date the same types of people only for me to be triggered into the same patterns, into the same types of hurt. And it's been really hard for me to let that go because I always thought, God, I have to take so much time to learn how to love myself. I don't know who's gonna be healthier for me. I also don't know if the next most healthy environment or friend or relationship or whatever, if it's gonna come along, if I'm healthy enough for that. Who's gonna love me? Who's gonna accept me during my in-between? I mean, here's the thing. Most of us are living in that. Most of us are not fully healed. A lot of people are very unhealed, but a lot of us are in that in-between on different levels of it. And you know what? It's okay to experience those different levels of people or situations, and they will not be perfect and they won't be perfectly healthy all the time. But this is where you get to learn your own boundaries, and you get to learn that you decide what you let into your life. I have been stuck in this pattern of thinking that I kind of hate people if they aren't all loving. Here's the thing. I think that's what everybody's experience is. And it blows my mind because I'm just like, well, if we're all complaining about the same thing, why don't we all take our masks off? Why don't we all agree to stop being an asshole to each other because we also just hate it? But we're allowing the shame voices, the controlling voices, we're allowing the fear and everyone led by fear to lead us. Stop. Love is the answer. No, but really though. Also, I just want to say, like, it is not gonna be like, again, overnight where you're gonna be able to let go of everything, but you can allow yourself to take steps to. Even I noticed, like, when I've had the worst like relationships in the past, I have done, like, spiritually, they call it a cord cutting ceremony, where you kind of meditate on what the relationship was like, the patterns that you don't want to repeat, the things that you don't want anymore, and the things you do want. You cut the cord between you and the person in your life, and you let it go. Doesn't mean that you have to let go of that person forever. Doesn't mean that that bond wasn't important. It's just the lesson and the person that you were needed that at that time. You get to honor that, and then you get to move forward. At the end of the day, I think it's really important, in order to let go of things, we accept what's happened. We sort of may need to grieve what's happened. We allow ourselves to express our feelings about it, but what we don't need to do anymore is to shield ourselves from feeling anything about it. We don't need to feel so much like we have to wear a mask in order to not feel embarrassed about what we're vulnerable about. We don't need atmospheres where we have to censor ourselves anymore. It's okay. It's okay to let go of the armor, of the let down the gates. What else am I trying to say here? Oh my God, isn't that scary? Hold on, I'm gonna do it for a little bit longer. Let go, stop, okay, sorry. I know that's probably scary, but allow your body to reassociate to feeling healthier. I know I keep falling into getting re-triggered, Even like things that are not even current in my life anymore. Like I'll still be hurting from past toxic behaviors from my family from years ago when they are actually more healed and our relationship's better now. I keep getting re-triggered because there is a knee-jerk reaction in my body to still be afraid of that. I still believe that those things are true, or like I still label myself a certain way. I still think I have to act the same way as that sort of like censored child did. And I don't have to anymore. So how can we start reassociating ourselves? We allow ourselves to feel our feelings, let go, express ourselves, and we start exposing ourselves slowly but surely to the newer things that we want. It'll take some retraining, but you actually need to learn how to accept healthier. You may not even be able to recognize it. It won't feel safe yet. You won't know how to act yet. But keep allowing yourself to be exposed to that. It's gonna take practice, but you are allowed to retrain that. You're also not just a trauma-informed being, and you don't have to stay like that forever. This is what I keep telling myself. Like, no one's even telling me what my personality is anymore, but for many years they did. And that's still stuck in me. And I'm lucky where like, I think my environments and everything are better, but I just have to finally tell my body that it's okay again, or that it's finally okay. I don't know if it ever felt okay before. And again, this may be completely new, and you may not even know what that looks like yet, but guess what? You get to maybe create that as well. So, yeah. Oh, last thing, like what Aaron Doughty does, do some breath work. Even if you're like, and he was emphasizing, you know, you don't have to understand things. You don't have to intellectualize it. You don't have to like understand complex therapy stuff. You can sort of start with your body. Do breath work. You'll feel that some like emotional pain comes up because when you're breathing, you're literally expressing yourself. You're actually allowing your body to let go of tension. And guess what? We become tense when we're trying to refrain from feeling things. So when you allow your body to feel all the things, some stuff might come up. You might cry, you might get angry, you might scream. A lot of shit happens in those types of guided breathwork meditations. People are like screaming, they're like singing. It's insane. You know, do it with the comfort of your own home if you want to, but let yourself, in your body at least, experience what it feels like to let go in the healthy way possible, in the healthiest way possible, which is do some breathing. Okay, well, I am wanting to switch up the way that I'm doing this podcast. So we'll see what that looks like for me. But until next time, peace and love, let go, and let love it. I don't know I forget. That's several songs, but I don't know. Okay, anyway, peace and love. Bye-bye.